Change your life before your weak habits become the evidence against you. You are not stuck because fate selected you for failure. You are stuck because your daily behavior keeps proving the same weak identity, even while your mouth claims you are becoming someone else. Every delay gives relief. Every distraction protects you from being tested. Every broken promise teaches your nervous system that your word has no authority. And once that pattern repeats long enough, it stops feeling like a choice. It starts feeling like who you are. That is the danger. But the answer is not rage, self-hatred, or one dramatic burst of discipline. That is just another emotional high. The stronger move is structure. Make weakness inconvenient. Make evidence visible. Track the reps. Remove the triggers. Finish what you said you would finish. A man does not change when he feels different. He changes when his evidence makes the old version harder to believe. But here is the question most men avoid. At what point does a habit stop being something you do and become evidence of who you are? Because that is where the real war begins. Not in your dreams, not in your goals, not in the version of yourself you imagine at night when regret gets loud. The war begins in repetition. The man who delays once can recover. The man who delays every day begins to build a personality around avoidance. The man who distracts himself once is human. The man who uses distraction every evening after work is no longer resting. He is training his mind to escape pressure. And this is why most men never change their lives. They do not lose to one giant failure. They lose to 1,000 quiet permissions, one skipped workout, one wasted night, one unfinished project, one more scroll, one more lie to themselves, one more promise they never enforce. Eventually, weakness does not need to attack them anymore. They protect it, they defend it, they explain it, they build their schedule around it. They say they are exhausted, but they keep feeding the habits that make them weaker. They say they need clarity, but they avoid the actions that would expose the truth. They say they are waiting for the right moment, but the right moment keeps finding them with the same body, the same bank account, the same output, the same excuses, and the same private shame. Machiavelli understood something brutal about human nature. Men are judged by results, not by hidden intentions. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are. This is why your private ambition means almost nothing to the outside world. Your family does not see your potential. They see your pattern. Your friends do not see your future. They see your consistency. The market does not care about your pain. It cares about your proof. And if your proof says you are inconsistent, distracted, emotionally dependent, physically soft, financially unstable, and always about to begin, then your words cannot save you. The cost is not only failure. The cost is internal collapse. You lose self-trust. You lose authority over your own mind. You lose the right to believe your own promises. You become a man who needs motivation because his own word has stopped commanding him. That is a dangerous place to live. Because a man who cannot command himself will always look for someone else to command him. He will look for approval. He will look for someone to believe in him. He will look for a sign, a push, a new plan, a new video, a new identity, a new emotional high. But none of those things can save a man whose behavior keeps voting against him. Look at Jeff Bezos before Amazon became an empire. He was not rewarded for imagining an online bookstore. Imagination was cheap. In 1995, Amazon opened its virtual doors. The early proof was not glamour. It was shipment. Within its first 4 weeks of operation, Amazon shipped books to customers in all 50 United States and more than 45 countries. That was evidence, not identity talk, not motivation, not one day I will build something massive. Evidence. Pressure. Leave a secure path and enter uncertainty. Action. Build the system. First proof. Real customers, real orders, real distribution. Power lesson. The world starts believing when behavior creates visible proof. Now take James Dyson. He did not become known because he loved invention. Many men love ideas. He became known because he survived the humiliating repetition of failure. His bagless vacuum took 5,127 prototypes and 15 years. Think about that. Most men cannot survive 15 days of low motivation. Dyson survived 15 years of iteration. Pressure, repeated failure, delayed validation, no easy proof. Action, keep prototyping until the idea had evidence. First proof, a working machine that showed the mechanism could beat the old model. Power lesson, repetition either exposes weakness or creates proof. These are not soft inspirational stories. They are demonstrations of one cold law: a man is not transformed by desire, he is transformed by repeated evidence under pressure. And that brings us to the 7 laws of identity destruction. Not destruction of your future, destruction of the weak identity that keeps impersonating you. These laws are not ideas to admire. If you only listen to them, you will use this video as another emotional drug. These laws only matter if they expose which habit currently owns you. Law 1. Your repeated behavior becomes your self-image. You do not become weak in one dramatic fall. You become weak by voting for weakness until your mind accepts the result. Every action is a ballot. When you skip the hard thing, you vote for the avoidant man. When you finish the hard thing, you vote for the disciplined man. When you consume instead of produce, you vote for invisibility. When you create output, you vote for proof. This is why small behaviors are not small. They are identity signals. A man who keeps acting weak eventually stops needing an excuse. He simply says, "This is how I am." No, that is not how you are. That is what you have rehearsed. There is a difference between your nature and your conditioning. There is a difference between who you are and what you have repeated long enough to feel normal. A man who has trained himself to avoid pressure will call discomfort a warning sign. A man who has trained himself to finish will call discomfort the entrance fee. Same pressure, different identity, same resistance, different interpretation, same world, different evidence. This is where most men lie to themselves. They want a new life, but they keep protecting the behaviors that confirm the old one. They want confidence, but they keep breaking promises. They want respect, but they keep avoiding the work that would make respect rational. They want money, leverage, options, and freedom, but they spend their strongest hours consuming the lives of men who built evidence while they were scrolling. Weakness does not need you to worship it, it only needs you to repeat it. And repetition is how the mind builds belief. If you delay every morning, your mind learns that your commands are optional. If you quit every time the work becomes boring, your mind learns that discomfort has authority over you. If you announce plans and never enforce them, your mind learns that speech is cheaper than action. Then one day you wonder why you do not trust yourself. The answer is simple. You have become a witness against your own word. This is why the first law is brutal. Your repeated behavior becomes your self-image because your mind believes your evidence more than your intentions. You can say you are disciplined, but your calendar tells the truth. You can say you are ambitious, but your output tells the truth. You can say you are serious, but your environment, your body, your bank account, and your finished work tell the truth. The world is not reading your fantasy, it is reading your pattern. If you are the right viewer, stop false progress. You already know the problem is not that you lack another quote, another plan, or another burst of anger. The real problem is that your private ambition still has too little visible proof, and if that continues, people will not be cruel for doubting you, they will be accurate. Patreon is where we go deeper into the private frameworks behind proof, positioning, discipline, leverage, self-command, funnels, and the systems that turn ambition into measurable evidence. It is not for men who want comfort, excuses, or motivational entertainment. It is for men ready to build receipts. The decision is yours. But why do weak habits survive even when a man hates them? Because the old life has infrastructure. Law 2, motivation dies when the environment rewards the old self. Most men try to change their life while leaving the old battlefield untouched. Same phone beside the bed, same room that makes focus expensive, same friends who mock discipline, same untracked schedule, same food that rewards fatigue, same late-night escape routes. Then they wonder why motivation disappears. Motivation dies because your environment keeps feeding the identity you claim you want to kill. The old self has systems. The new self has speeches. That is why speeches lose. Machiavelli warned about new orders. He said there is nothing more difficult, dangerous, or uncertain than introducing a new order of things. Why? Because the old order has defenders. In your life, those defenders are not armies, they are habits. The phone next to your bed is a defender of the old order. The friend who mocks your discipline is a defender of the old order. The messy room that makes focus expensive is a defender of the old order. The untracked schedule is a defender of the old order. Your old life does not need intelligence, it only needs convenience. Understand the humiliation of this. Many men are not defeated by massive enemies. They are defeated by access. Access to the app, access to the food, access to the bed, access to the distraction, access to the people who pull them back into their old identity. The weak habit wins because it is close, cheap, familiar, and emotionally rewarding. The stronger habit loses because it requires preparation. The gym requires shoes, movement, discomfort, and time. The scroll requires a thumb. Deep work requires a clean desk, a blocked hour, and a mind willing to be judged by output. Entertainment only requires surrender. And the old self understands this. It does not argue with you directly. It waits until you are tired. It waits until work has drained you. It waits until your standards are weaker. Then it offers relief. Not destruction. Relief. That is the trap. Weak habits rarely feel evil in the moment. They feel kind. They feel deserved. They feel like recovery. They feel like just tonight. But the nervous system does not care about your excuse. It only records the pattern. This is why discipline without environment design becomes expensive. You spend your entire day fighting battles that should have been removed before they began. You wake up and fight the phone. You try to work and fight the open tabs. You try to eat clean and fight the food you bought when you were weak. You try to focus and fight a room designed for sleep, entertainment, and clutter. You try to grow while surrounded by people who benefit from you remaining familiar. Then you blame your character. No. Sometimes the problem is not that you are weak. Sometimes the problem is that you keep giving weakness home field advantage. Law 3. Weak habits survive because they offer immediate relief. This is the hidden transaction. Distraction gives relief from pressure. Procrastination gives relief from judgment. Entertainment gives relief from emptiness. Food gives relief from anxiety. Oversleeping gives relief from responsibility. Over-explaining gives relief from uncertainty. The weak habit is not random. It is doing a job. It protects you from the discomfort of becoming measurable. Because once you act, reality can judge you. Once you publish, people can ignore it. Once you train, your body exposes you. Once you sell, the market answers. Once you commit, excuses lose oxygen. So the mind chooses relief and calls it rest, calls it timing, calls it not ready yet. But under the mask, it is fear negotiating with comfort. This is where the unsupported man must be honest. You may not have family support. You may not have a network. You may not have money behind you. You may not have people clapping while you build. But if you use that pain as permission to stay undisciplined, then your abandonment becomes a cage you help maintain. No one is coming to save your attention. No one is coming to protect your evenings. No one is coming to force you to produce proof. If nobody is coming, then the question becomes simple. Are you going to become your own law, or are you going to let convenience govern you? You are not lazy. You are overprotected by your own escape routes. That sentence should disturb you, because it means your problem is not a lack of potential. It means your current life may be designed to protect you from the very pressure that would transform you. You avoid the sales call because rejection would make your value measurable. You avoid the workout because your body would reveal the cost of neglect. You avoid writing the page because the blank page does not care about your imagined genius. You avoid publishing because silence from the market would hurt more than private fantasy. You avoid commitment because once you commit, the excuse of "I could if I wanted to" begins to die. That is the real enemy, not discomfort. Measurement. The weak identity survives because it keeps you vague. Vague goals, vague effort, vague timelines, vague standards, vague output, vague promises, vague progress. And vague progress is the safest place for a man who wants to feel ambitious without being exposed. So ask a harder question, not, "Why am I not motivated?" Ask, "What reward does weakness give me?" Because whatever rewards you, rules you. If distraction rewards you with escape, distraction rules you. If approval rewards you with emotional certainty, approval rules you. If comfort rewards you with temporary peace, comfort rules you. If talking about goals rewards you with the feeling of progress, talking rules you. If resentment rewards you with the feeling that your failure has an enemy, resentment rules you. And a man ruled by hidden rewards is not free. He may speak about freedom, he may read about power, he may admire discipline, but internally he is still being managed by whatever gives him relief fastest. That is why the next law is more dangerous than distraction. Because after a man repeats weak habits long enough, he does not only lose time, he loses internal authority. Law 4. The man who breaks promises to himself loses internal authority. Every time you say you will do something and do not do it, you weaken the throne inside your own mind. At first, nothing happens. Nobody sees it. Nobody punishes you. The world keeps moving. Your family does not know you betrayed your own schedule. Your friends do not know you abandoned the plan again. The market does not know you wasted another evening. Your body does not collapse immediately. Your bank account does not instantly punish you. That is why it feels harmless. But internally, something decays. Your word becomes less serious. Your standards become negotiable. Your future self becomes harder to believe. Then you need more motivation, more videos, more quotes, more external pressure, more emotional stimulation, because your own command no longer moves you. This is how men become dependent on validation. A man who cannot trust himself starts borrowing certainty from other people. He needs approval because his own word feels empty. He needs applause because private discipline no longer satisfies him. He needs someone to believe in him because he has stopped giving himself evidence. He begins to chase emotional confirmation from the outside world because his inner courtroom has already judged him unreliable. And this is more dangerous than most men understand. When a man loses internal authority, he does not simply become inconsistent. He becomes governable. His mood governs him. His phone governs him. His hunger governs him. His loneliness governs him. His friends govern him. The opinion of people who have never built anything governs him. A random comment can change his direction. A bad day can destroy his standards. A little doubt can make him quit something he claimed was his future. That is not freedom. That is mental dependency. Machiavelli's realism points us back to the real truth, not how a man wishes to appear, not how he describes himself, not the identity he performs. The real truth is this: your life is governed by what you repeatedly enforce, not what you admire, not what you intend, not what you post, what you enforce. If you enforce distraction, distraction rules. If you enforce standards, standards rule. If you enforce evidence, evidence rules. This is why the unsupported man cannot afford to be casual with his word. A man with support can sometimes be rescued from weak systems. A man with money behind him can survive more mistakes. A man with connections can be forgiven for more inconsistency. But when you are building without backup, your word is not decoration. It is infrastructure. Your promise is a bridge. Break enough bridges and eventually there is nowhere left to cross. You may think nobody saw you quit, but your nervous system saw it. You may think nobody noticed you broke the promise, but your self-respect noticed it. You may think another wasted night disappears when morning comes, but it does not disappear. It becomes part of the evidence file. And one day, when you try to command yourself, something inside you refuses to obey. Not because you are doomed, not because you are broken, not because you lack potential, but because your mind has learned your commands are not laws. They are suggestions. They are wishes. They are noises you make when regret is loud. So how does a man take power back from habits that already own territory inside him? He stops fighting them emotionally. He attacks their logistics. Law 5. You must make weakness inconvenient. This is where most self-improvement fails. It tells men to be stronger, but leaves temptation cheap. No, that is bad strategy. If weakness remains easy to access, discipline will always feel expensive. If the phone steals your mornings, do not sleep beside the phone. If social media destroys your focus, block it during work hours. If your room makes you tired, clean the room before you need discipline. If your evenings disappear, decide the first action before the workday ends. If junk food defeats you at night, do not negotiate with it in your kitchen. If weak friends drain ambition, reduce access. If your goals remain invisible, put a scoreboard where you cannot lie. Track the reps, track the money, track the output, track the workouts, track the study hours, track the promises kept. Because vague weakness survives. Measured weakness starts dying. A weak habit does not become powerful because it is intelligent. It becomes powerful because it is frictionless. It is close. It is available. It has no entrance fee. It asks nothing from you except surrender. The old self is not always stronger than the new self. It is simply easier to reach. So stop making the new man climb walls while the old man gets an open door. The stronger man does not merely rely on willpower. He engineers the battlefield. He does not wait until night to decide whether he will train. He decides before fatigue arrives. He does not wait until the urge to scroll appears before creating a rule. He blocks the app before the urge has a voice. He does not keep poison in the kitchen and call himself weak for eating it. He removes the poison because he understands that strategy beats drama. Psychologist Peter Golwitz's work on implementation intentions showed the power of if-then planning. When situation X happens, I will perform response. Why? That is not motivational language. That is command structure. If it is 7 in the evening, I train. If I open my laptop, I write for 45 minutes before I consume. If I feel the urge to scroll, I stand up and do 20 push-ups. If I miss one day, I return the next day without drama. If I am tired after work, I start with the smallest proof, not the biggest fantasy. If I feel embarrassed by my current level, I measure the rep anyway. If nobody supports me, I build the system as if no one is supposed to. This is how you stop negotiating with weakness. You remove the negotiation table. Most men lose because every day is a debate. Should I train? Should I work? Should I save? Should I write? Should I study? Should I publish? Should I make the call? Should I clean the room? Should I track the money? Should I keep the promise? A man who debates his standards every day will eventually be defeated by a tired mood. The mood only needs one weak evening. The standard needs a law. That is why structure is power. Structure makes the right action easier to repeat and the wrong action harder to access. Structure does not care about your feelings. It is not impressed by your excuses. It waits for the trigger and executes the response. It turns discipline from an emotional battle into an operating system. And this is where the old identity begins to lose territory. Not because you hated yourself enough, not because you shouted at the mirror, not because you watched a darker video. It loses territory because you changed the conditions under which it used to win. The phone is no longer beside the bed. The work session is already scheduled. The room no longer drains focus. The food is no longer waiting in the kitchen. The app is blocked. The rep is tracked. The scoreboard is visible. The promise is small enough to keep and serious enough to matter. Weakness survives in fog. Structure turns on the light. Law 6. Replace intensity with evidence. Most men love intensity because intensity lets them feel transformed without becoming transformed. They watch one brutal video and feel reborn. They write a plan and feel dangerous. They announce a new chapter and feel powerful. They imagine the comeback. They imagine the silence of their doubters. They imagine the respect, the body, the money, the freedom, the calm authority. But then the next day arrives, and the same body wakes up in the same room with the same phone and the same impulses. Intensity fades. Evidence remains. One finished page, one recorded video, one completed workout, one sales call, 1 hour of deep work, one clean meal, one invoice sent, $1 saved, one promise kept. This is how self-trust returns, not through emotion, through receipts. Research on habit formation in real life shows that repeated behavior in stable contexts becomes more automatic over time. The strategic lesson is simple. Stop begging your mind to change. Give it repeated evidence in the same conditions until the behavior starts becoming normal. That is how the new identity gains territory, not by shouting, by occupying ground. Every completed rep is an occupation of territory. Every finished task plants a flag. Every tracked habit makes the invisible visible. Every promise kept tells your nervous system, this command matters. Every piece of output says, the new man is not a fantasy anymore. He has proof. Do not underestimate small evidence. A weak man mocks small evidence because he wants a dramatic transformation. A strategic man respects small evidence because he understands compounding. One page is not a book, but it is evidence that the writer exists. One workout is not a body, but it is evidence that the standard exists. One saved dollar is not freedom, but it is evidence that impulse no longer owns every decision. One published offer is not wealth, but it is evidence that the market can now answer. The old identity dies when it no longer has the strongest evidence. For years, maybe your old identity had more receipts, more nights wasted than nights built, more promises broken than promises kept, more plans announced than projects finished, more consumption than production, more excuses than output, more escape than exposure. That is why the old self felt real. It had a case. It had witnesses. It had history. So stop trying to defeat history with feelings. Build a stronger case. If you know this is the real problem, stop pretending more content equals progress. The issue is not information. The issue is conversion, turning knowledge into structure, structure into proof, proof into leverage, and leverage into freedom. Inside Patreon, the deeper system is built for men who want private frameworks, unfiltered breakdowns, proof architecture, positioning, discipline, funnels, leverage, and self-command without the performance. It is not for spectators collecting intensity. It is for builders who are ready to become measurable. The decision is yours. Law 7. Become the man whose standards punish regression. The old question is weak. Do I feel like doing it? That question hands power to mood. The stronger question is, what does the man I am becoming tolerate? Does he tolerate breaking promises? Does he tolerate sleeping through his own future? Does he tolerate being physically weak? Does he tolerate being financially dependent? Does he tolerate invisible effort? Does he tolerate explaining goals he has not proven? Does he tolerate being the man who always starts over? When your standards rise, regression becomes painful, not because you hate yourself, but because the old life no longer fits your rank. This is the identity shift. You are not trying to become motivated. You are becoming governed. Governed by structure, governed by proof, governed by standards, governed by evidence. Machiavelli wrote that the man ruined by changing times is the one who cannot change his conduct. That is the death sentence for weak men. They keep the same conduct and expect a different fate. They keep the same habits and expect a different identity. They keep the same environment and expect a different future. They keep the same weakness and expect respect. No. Respect follows evidence. Power follows structure. Freedom follows self-command. The unsupported man must understand this better than anyone. No one is coming to organize your life. No one is coming to protect your attention. No one is coming to build your body. No one is coming to create your portfolio. No one is coming to save your money. No one is coming to remove your distractions. No one is coming to enforce your standards. Good. That means no one owns the result. You are not abandoned. You are unowned. But unowned does not mean undisciplined. It means you must become your own law. Your old identity survives because it has evidence. Give the new identity more. Every day, create proof that makes the old version harder to believe. Not once. Repeatedly. Not loudly. Visibly. Not emotionally. Structurally. This is where a man becomes dangerous to his old life. Not dangerous to other people. Dangerous to the pattern that trained him to remain small. Dangerous to the comfort that made him average. Dangerous to the excuses that protected his ego but destroyed his future. Dangerous to the distractions that numbed his shame while stealing his strongest years. A governed man is different. He does not need every person to understand him. He does not need his family to approve the mission before he moves. He does not need his friends to clap for every private rep. He does not need the market to reward him before he builds the skill. He does not need confidence before action, because confidence is no longer the requirement. Evidence is the requirement. He knows the world updates slowly. He knows people judge patterns. He knows hidden potential is often treated as non-existent potential. So he stops begging to be seen and starts becoming undeniable in the only language reality respects, proof. The man you claim to be needs evidence. Not a speech, not a mood, not a fantasy, evidence. If you say you are disciplined, show the calendar. If you say you are building, show the output. If you say you are changing, show the removed trigger. If you say you are serious, show the promise kept when nobody was watching. If you say you want freedom, show the money saved, the skill practiced, the offer made, the asset built. If you say you are no longer the old man, then stop giving the old man fresh evidence every day. This is not about perfection. Perfection is another hiding place. Men use perfection to avoid measurement. They say they cannot start until the plan is clean, until the setup is ready, until the confidence arrives, until the timing makes sense. But the man who waits for perfect conditions usually wants protection from judgment. Start imperfectly, but track honestly. Return quickly, reduce drama. Keep receipts, build the proof. If you miss one day, return the next day. If you fail one rep, complete the next rep. If you waste one evening, protect the next morning. If you break one promise, make the next promise smaller and keep it with violence of focus. Not violence against yourself. Violence against the negotiation. Violence against the excuse. Violence against the soft permission that says it does not matter. It matters because the pattern is always listening. The old identity does not need your total surrender. It only needs repeated permission. The new identity does not need your dramatic announcement. It only needs repeated evidence. That is the war. Permission against proof. Convenience against structure. Mood against standard. Fantasy against receipt. And you already know which side has been winning. That recognition is not meant to humiliate you. It is meant to sober you. Shame without structure becomes paralysis. Truth with structure becomes power. So do not leave this as another video that made you feel something. Feeling is cheap. Your life does not change because you understood the sentence. It changes when the sentence becomes a system. Before this day ends, remove one trigger. Track one proof, keep one promise, make one piece of evidence visible. Not tomorrow. Not after you feel ready. Not after the next wave of motivation. Now, comment. Evidence, if you are done negotiating with weakness. Then act in a way that makes the comment true. Because the world does not need your explanation, it needs evidence. And you need it more than the world does. Once you have enough evidence, you stop begging to feel confident. You know, stop trying to feel different. Build evidence that makes the old version of you harder to believe in. A man does not change his life when he feels inspired. He changes his life when weakness becomes inconvenient, proof becomes visible, and his standards become stronger than his excuses. Build the structure. Track the evidence. Kill the old pattern before it becomes your permanent name.